So to finish off this particular module, we're going to talk about wireframing and how we can apply some design principles to help us thinking about how we design digital products or services or landing pages or whatever that might be. So a few wireframing basics. The good news, there's some very good news about wireframing, is that everyone can sketch and wireframe. So you don't need to be Leonardo da Vinci to do some wireframes. All you need to sketch is some ideas, and wireframes can look really terrible and it still work out great, and it saves an awful lot of time and money. So we always start with paper. We always sketch stuff up on paper, and the only tools that you actually need when you're thinking about wireframing is a pen and a piece of paper, and we tend to use the Sharpie pens, which are really good. We can sketch ideas up on a page, and whenever we're thinking about sketching, we want to make sure that we don't add too much detail too early. So we start to sketch some ideas up, and we want to sort of get the idea on paper rather than having loads and loads of detail. There's just an example here of something we did for Sky, and you can see that the actual sketch itself started off as being a fairly rudimentary sketch on the left hand side. We sketched some ideas up, and we kind of just thought about where might some of that key content go, and then we started thinking about how that could potentially evolve into something a bit more tangible. And then what we did was we took that sketch and turned it into an interactive clickable prototype, and we do that so that we can actually test concepts with users before they actually go to market. So if we can get stuff right at this design stage, when the designs are fairly rudimentary and what have you, then we know that users are going to actually be able to use the main website when that's been developed. There are a number of different ways that you can sketch or wireframe different ideas up, and there are pattern libraries out there on the web. So if you go into Google and you type the word pattern library, you can find a number of different ways of designing different elements on a page. So for example, what you might find are some examples on how to design a product page, for example. And what tends to happen in the pattern libraries, they tend to sort of give you top level structural designs on how that might look, might show you some ideas on how to design an e-commerce site, for example. And then once we've got some basic ideas, we can then start to make that design look a little bit more like the finished article, and we can use techniques like hi-fi prototyping techniques. There are a number of different tools out there you might want to take a look at. We could use Balsamiq, or you could use tools like InVision, for example, which are really nice ways of actually prototyping up that digital product or service to make it look like the final thing. And as I mentioned, a few different ideas on pattern libraries. The sites out there like Dribble, you'll come up with a load of different pattern libraries if you just type pattern library into Google. And what tends to happen is whenever you're designing a new product or service, you might use that as a point of reference, and it kind of shows you all of the ways that you might want to be able to represent this type of information. And then it's up to you to then start thinking about how you can best utilize the design for your particular problem. And that's really what UX design is all about. So hopefully that's useful. And we're coming to an end of this particular module.